Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. Today I have my roommate, Isaiah, and I'm very happy to explore his passion, which is music and DJing. I'm going to let him introduce yourself. Isaiah, what do you have to say?
What's good? I'm Isaiah. It's an honor to be here, Albie. I've had the privilege of watching him sort of start this project, editing in our living room, talking about it. So it's an honor, and I'm very grateful to be here.
Isaiah, I want to tell you, you're one of the most passionate people that I've found at Vanderbilt. And the reason that I wanted to have you first in the podcast is just to kind of set the stone of what I'm envisioning for this podcast and what I want the conversation to go through. And it's interesting to me because you've been able to thrive and grow at Vanderbilt, even though you transferred, which is, I would say, a difficult start. So I'm interested, how did you deal with that, coming from a different environment to a new one and then, growing into your passion?
Definitely. That's a good question. I would say my entire experience of transferring to Vanderbilt can be encapsulated by the phrase, say less, say yes. Especially in my first semester here, I was, didn't really know anybody. I was actually living in Village, which is pretty far from main campus.
That's where the liquor is too.
Yeah. which was a good, good location for several reasons. It was very comfortable. I had my own room in a pretty big suite with just one other roommate. And for the first week or so, I was enjoying it, but then it kind of hit me wow, I kind of want to be in the thick of things. I could someone introduced me to Branscombe. I remember walking to Scone for the first time. I think we went to Munchie.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude,
what's going on here?
Everybody's living in the same place and hanging out in Lup Lounge and doing homework, and you're right near, Greek Row and main campus. And for a week or so after that, I was making friends in my transfer group, many of whom I'm still close with today. But I definitely wanted to really integrate myself. I'm a very extroverted and social person. I love meeting new people and connecting and sharing ideas we're doing right now. So for the week after, it was probably syllabus week or the week after syllabus week, I just kept having these thoughts. I was like, dude, I gotta get out of Village. I have to get on main campus somehow. I'm either gonna rent a U-Haul and throw a fucking cot in the back and just thug it out for a year, or I have to get creative, right?
Right.
And I feel this sort of mindset is the mindset that I take towards adversity in any realm, which is I want to be creative about finding solutions that put myself in the best position to be able to flourish. And for me, flourishing is primarily about connecting with other people. So I was all right, fuck this. I'm going to get in touch with housing and see what I can do. Housing was not with it. They were you can't just switch into Scone. You put a suite on your housing application.
Right.
You have to stay in Village unless you were to find someone that wanted to swap with you.
Damn.
And so that night, I got 15 pieces of loose leaf paper and some tape. And by that point, I was rushing K-Sig as well, so I knew some of you guys on LUP 2 and LUP 6. So I had someone, I think it was Slew or someone, scan me up in the elevator, and I hit every floor in Lupton.
Just asking.
Taping signs in the hallways. I have a suite with a bathroom, washer, dryer, full kitchen, whatever. This is my number. Let's swap. Text me.
I actually remember you doing that. I would see you in LUP and you'd have a piece of paper and just
pen, and people thought I was crazy because I still didn't really know anyone. So who's this rando hanging up signs across Branscombe? But I knew what I wanted, and I would have I knew that I would have regret not having tried.
Right.
I at least wanted to try and see what could happen. Within 24 hours, I had probably 15 to 20 people texting me. Half of those texts were people being dude, you're crazy.
What's going on?
Why would you want to, especially on LUP 2, they're this is a shithole. Why are you trying to live here? But I had a few kids that were actually interested. Over the course of the next few days, I went and saw their rooms, ended up barding with a few of them to the point that one kid actually paid me to swap into his room, and it was the one that I liked the best.
So you got a good deal too.
And his roommate was moving out. So shout out Sid Sharma. I got to move out of Village into an awesome room on LUP 6, and then I talked to Sid, and he moved out of his other room, which was in Stapleton at the time. So I ended up being able to live with my best transfer friend at the time.
That's insane.
In LUP 6 with my other friends there. Exactly.
And it's funny because you didn't like just accept your status quo. And I think that's like a key quality that you have, is that you don't get comfortable with your situation. Like, I know a lot of people would be like, okay, I got Villa. Like, what can I do about it? I guess I'll just pass the semester this way. You're like grinding that. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to make this happen. And I
Yeah.
think that's where like the point about passion is. And I think that also translates in music as well. Is that, yeah, I'm doing this, but I can also do that. And I can also grow in that area.
Yeah.
Do you think this was like nurtured, or was it something that you've always had?
I think it's been a combination of things. I would say like my disposition has always been like, I'm extroverted, I'm ambitious, I'm social, as I said, but I'm also like pretty like ADD. So, they say like ADHD, like with things that you're not that passionate about, like if you've seen me in class, like I'm kind of all over the place, respectfully. Like I'm like watching mixes on YouTube or like checking my email. But with stuff that I'm really passionate about, I have like hyper focus. And that has been like a combination of nurture and nature for me, because I have that sort of like innate sort of, I'm either kind of a little chaotic or like super locked in, but it's taken me a little while to like not only learn about, but honor that. And that's been like, you're catching me at a pretty interesting point right now, because I feel like I'm just getting to the point where I'm like starting to kind of master that. And like, I don't even try to force myself to really do things that I know is not going to work for my brain. And I'm pouring a lot more energy into like, for example, a career in music, instead of like forcing myself into X, Y, Z, more stereotypical career profession that might be safer and like more understood by the people I'm around, and there's more people doing it. Like, I've had to figure out a lot of it myself, but because I'm so passionate about it, it's enabled me to tap into that hyper focus. And like, it's done a lot for even like my self-confidence, honestly, because I was getting to the point in college where I was like not really doing all my readings and like not excelling as much in my homework. And like, I know I'm very smart, and like I've done enough throughout school. Like I got into Vanderbilt, whatever. Like I feel like I've proven that to myself, but it was always like way more of a slog for me than I felt like it was for the people around me. And I feel very grateful and honestly proud that like I'm allowing myself to like, that I'm not like fulfilling any sort of narrative, external narrative about what I should be doing right now or how I should be doing it.
I like that.
I've like been able to discover for myself like what works for me and like what I'm passionate about, and sort of, as I said, with the hyper focus, like it's kind of just like flows out of me, because it feels way more natural.
I like that, especially the part where you want to architect your own future. You don't have to kind of submerge into this already expected life that you should live. You just always want to have your own vision. And I think, Isaiah, you're a very humble guy. I know you probably would not like me mentioning this, but let me just say, this guy has been doing a boom in Nashville in the DJing area. He's been opening up for Steve Aoki. Like, Steve Aoki was one of my favorite DJs. He's performed in 100 bars, 100 clubs, and now he's like even DJing in Whiskey Row, like all these clubs that we hit on Saturdays on Broadways. And to me, that just, it's impressive, Isaiah. And I think I want to ask you, like, how did you, go from, oh, look, I like mixing in this board, to I'm opening for Steve Aoki? That's a big jump right there.
Definitely a big jump. Hey, I'm flattered. Thank you for those kind words. It's honestly been, like, concretely, it's been like a 3-year process. Like, I bought a DJ board during COVID 3 years ago. More broadly speaking, I've been very passionate about electronic music for like 10 years. And for a while, it was just me, like, the funny thing is, like, I would always listen to like mixes or watch mixes while I was doing my homework. And then it was only like 10 years later when I was in college where I was like, well, why am I doing the homework? Why don't I just like actually try to like, And shout out Joey Bykov. I had a very sort of profound and cathartic moment with him. One night we were studying together, I think sophomore year. So I had just started DJing. And he saw that I was distracted, not really doing my homework, and watching a mix. And he was like, Zay, like, why don't you like actually do this shit?
Right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, for sure. And he was like, no, like, why don't you like actually, like, if this is actually what you're passionate, like, walk the walk.
Yeah.
He kind of kept me honest in that way. Kind of had a moment where I was like, yeah, he's kind of right. Like,
Joey's right.
I am really passionate about this. And like, I haven't like given it the time of day to really like think about how it's structure like a career, like even like building towards that. So from that moment forward, like, I had been DJing like essentially in my bedroom. I had been like mixing mostly house music, a little bit of hip hop, watching videos on YouTube, and it was mostly pretty awful. I was having fun, but if you ask Sid, who I lived with for 2 years, like there were many nights where he was studying and I was like blasting like these awful mixes in our room. I was kind of infamous on Lep 6 for like
just like rocking the floor.
Yeah, exactly. But it was very like entrepreneurial and still is, and very people facing, which I've enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And I took this say less, say yes mentality and started applying it to business. For example, anytime I would go out with somebody to any venue or bar in Nashville, I would not shut up about like what was going on, who was going to be there that weekend, what the venue was doing right or doing wrong. This is like with like the bartenders or like the promoters or the DJs. I would even talk to my Uber drivers, like, how long you been in Nashville? What do you think about the music industry? This and that. I was like, and it wasn't like, it's a fine line to walk, I would say, because a lot of people, I would say, especially young people in music, like you get in like a space with like someone who's in the industry and you can feel like you have to like put on or like be arrogant to like own that space. But I was just really curious and like excited, which I think has helped.
You had that beginner mind that we talk about.
Exactly. Yeah. The beginner mindset. So I was like, even if like, a DJ was playing for 5 people in the room, I'd go up and talk to him. I remember going up to this one guy at a hookah bar. There were like 5 people in the room. I was like, hey man, like I want to be your agent. Like, give me your number. He gave me his number. We texted, and like he ended up giving me like some advice that like helped me down the road. But it was just a lot of those like very small sort of organic interactions that led to like developing. There were a lot of like dead ends. Like I haven't talked to that guy whose number I got in like 2 years. Like I couldn't tell you his name. But as I started applying that to like, following people on Instagram who I saw were running these really cool parties in Nashville, or, following DJs that I started to respect, and then I'd see them out and suddenly I like know what they've been doing. So then I go up and talk to them and then, I can introduce myself. People have been very friendly and like willing to like collaborate and like put me on, which has been, very, very affirming and very exciting. But I would definitely go back to like leaning into that beginner mind and that like now sort of being on the other side where it's like a weird dynamic. I have kids like my age coming to me
asking for
advice. Like I'm always happy to like
provide.
Talk and like I'll even like mix with kids to like, like see what kind of music they like and like give them some tips if I can. But there are definitely kids who come at it like,
asking for
I'm not gonna say anyone's name obviously, but like I don't even think he goes to Vanderbilt. But I had someone recently be like, yeah, man, like I just know like I'm already like one of the best DJs in Nashville.
It's
and
the
like
ego.
I just have and like if you come at it with that sort of mindset, like I think being in the music industry requires a certain type of person that's very excited about events and very excited about people and very excited about music for music's sake. And if you're coming in with like a
I already know everything mindset, that
it's kind of a turnoff.
It's a terrible upper bound of knowledge because you think you already know the stuff, so you limit yourself to expand on that knowledge. And I read this quote also from this sales book that on the point of helping, that you can get whatever you want if you're willing to help others get what they want. And I think that that's where, helping other can actually be a two-way beneficial system, because not only you're helping them, but I think universe has weird ways to like, go around and kind of give back what you've put for good.
Definitely.
And on that note, I was just curious, do you think at Vanderbilt there's a sense of like competitiveness of I want to be successful by myself, or do you think it's a more collaborative ecosystem?
I wouldn't call it either. I would say it's a very safe environment. I think that people might be competitive in the way that they're very ambitious, and they might be like going for the same sorts of opportunities and like getting jealous when their friend gets the Goldman offer, but they didn't. But like, I think everyone is sort of like walking a very similar path.
You think?
And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Like, I think for many people, like, that is what they're passionate about, or like that is what they need right now in their lives, or like, you know, they have to honor family obligations, or they have to honor financial obligations. Like, that's totally fair. I'm not gonna be out here saying like you need to like be an artist and like, you know, be financially unstable and like do this and that to like be valid. But I would say like there's more of a collaborative atmosphere in like people are helping other people network. You have organizations like AKSI and DSP, even just like general organizations, people like putting each other on and hosting events.
Just building a community that thrives together.
Yeah. I think so.
You think there's
at least a community that's sticking together through some sort of experience?
I personally can tell you that even within these communities, like there's immense help and like always progress through the assistance of each other. But I do think there's always this sort of, oh, I need to get this job. And if there's like certain applicants to the job, if you have a competitive edge, I don't know if it's the best strategy to share that competitive edge. But at the same time, I think it's the format of like college to a job that makes people very narrow-minded, that it's like almost scarce. Like these jobs are just for the best and only these people are going to get that. And where I want to connect with this is that I think you've been one of the few examples that I can point at Vanderbilt that it's ready to blind all these like noise and lights and just straight focus on his sole mission and won't be affected by, oh, did you hear that XYZ got this job? You're just doing your own thing. You're passionate about music. You know that's your path. How are you able to kind of be in an environment where constantly it's talked about jobs and opportunities, but still be able to, you know, pursue what you love to do?
I'd say there are two answers to that. One is like, I kind of knew that path was never for me. Like, I've always been very entrepreneurial. I've always been very independent. I like worked at a hardware store for like 4 months in high school and absolutely fucking hated it. Quit, started my own landscaping business, and like probably half the dudes at Vanderbilt started landscaping businesses in high school, whatever. But I was making like great money, and I had like 40 clients in like 3 towns, and like
it's a lot.
My boy, long story short, my boy at my last school had a truck when COVID hit. Actually, this wasn't even high school. But, like, I scaled it to the point that even in college, when I came home for COVID, I had, like, Susan from across the block. You know, and I'm, like, a college student at this point. She's like, hey, like, can you come, like, build my patio this summer? And I was like, well, yeah, it's COVID, so I'm
down.
home. And, like, of course. But I was making way better money. I was my own boss. It was untaxed, under the table. And, like, I actually really enjoyed, like, working outside and working with my hands and, like, building stuff. And that experience was sort of illuminating for me because I think I realized that, you know, 16, even younger, like 15, 14, I was like out busting my ass shoveling every time there's a snowstorm, you know, raking leaves, like knocking on people's doors. Like I guess it's like sales, you know, sales and entrepreneurship. I like really loved. And as like the pressure of like internships and like recruiting and all of that has sort of mounted, you know, it's hard to say because I acknowledge my, I don't know if you want to call it luck or privilege of being in a city like Nashville. Because for the viewer that might not know this, I started at Middlebury College, which is a tiny liberal arts school in Vermont. Lovely place, very beautiful. They have great chocolate milk. If you enjoy skiing, there's lots of skiing. But kind of the only things we would do up there were ski,
chocolate
weed,
milk,
and drink chocolate milk. Yeah. And that got really old after like a month. But like had I stayed there, would I be Zay the DJ opening for like I'll have not to like gloat, but like I'll have random people at school. Like I'll introduce myself. Oh yeah, of course, Zay, like the DJ, whatever.
Yeah.
I would not have had that opportunity if I was in the middle of Vermont. So Nashville has been huge for me because it's growing super quickly. There's like a few different scenes that I've gotten to be involved in. There's like a late night house music scene, companies like Full Circle, which does Deep Tropics Festival, which I played last month. There's like late night, like more table oriented, like bottle service promotions with like After Dark. Now we're throwing some like bigger, crazier events that I
sir.
can't really talk about, but that are very exciting.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Trail about to drop.
Exactly. And I think like with the beginner mind and with enough like being able to like DJ, the DJing component is hard to explain because I've never felt as like innately called to do something as I do when I'm like playing in front of a room of people. Like it's something that I genuinely feel like is almost like my calling.
I see.
Which, you know,
it's intrinsic almost.
Yeah.
It's something that it's hard to put in words because only you can feel that way.
Exactly. And I'm a very like I'm struggling to verbalize it because I'm a very like intuitive and like it's just a feeling that I get when I'm playing, and especially when I know I'm doing well, it's like the best feeling in the world.
And that's why it's unique too, because you can only like have that certain feeling. I'm sure other people might be on the same path, but I think everybody experiences passion in different ways and sees it in different colors.
Yeah.
But on the topic of kind of pursuing your passion, I've noticed in a lot of other successful people that communication is a key skill, and I think you're an excellent example of that. You're very eloquent and easy to talk to, and also like put complex ideas into few words. I'm curious, how did you develop your ability to speak so clearly and concisely? Was it something during your high school, maybe transferring to a different college? Can you walk me through that?
I'm tempted to go back to the prior question for just a second, because my second answer to what I was saying was part of what makes this whole process easier is surrounding myself with people like you. And like our house has been really big for me in that way, because even though there's all this noise on the outside, on the inside, we have you, me, Abdullah, 808 Spins, and Ocean. We're all very entrepreneurial, independent, and big.
All the members of the kingdom for all the viewers.
Exactly. And we're going to host boiler rooms on a rooftop, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
But I just wanted to verbalize that.
Yeah.
Regarding the other question, I think from a young age, because of a multitude of things that was going on in my life, I was spending a lot of time out of my house, which was good because I was like very excited and social. Like I was excited to be around other people, but I was just like basically always out doing stuff.
Just outdoors.
Yeah. And like I lived in like, I'm from like suburban Connecticut. I live like right in the downtown. There's like a nice green and like, back roads and like streets and stuff. So I had some of my best friends like 50 yards away from me. We'd be biking and like walking around all the time.
And I assume it was not at the point where technology was catching up and everybody was on their phone.
So there was a pretty like gleeful childhood in that, and a very social childhood. That could have played a role. I would say more concretely, like really pushing myself out of my comfort zone in high school was very transformational. Not many people know this, but I'm actually a theater kid. I
used to do theater too. I had like 2 shows, I swear. I'm trying to side those like shows that nobody sees.
The sneaky thespians. Yeah, we're here.
But no, I feel like acting does help you, kind of deal with that public speaking aspect, 1, and 2, just putting yourself in a different personas and like seeing through that lens. Like I think that's very crucial. And I don't know, I think it's in only USA that like theater kids are kind of like, different, not to say the word weird, but I don't know, bro. I feel like in Macedonia when I was doing it, I was like,
you were the man.
Yo, I'm like popular. And I was not popular.
Albie got the lead role, man.
It was like 5 people in the show. It was terrible. But yeah.
Yeah. So theater, as you say, like presenting yourself, like sophomore year, I started and I was like, tree number 3 in the back.
Yeah.
Junior year, I had like a minor speaking role. And then senior year, I was actually the lead.
I see.
And I kind of auditioned for the lead on a whim because like I had never like really been in that position before. But like the lead role, we did Anything Goes. The lead role is like a sort of like a cheery, like romantic, like chasing this girl for the whole production. And at the end, and my girlfriend at the time was actually in the other role, which was
perfect
fun.
Example. Yeah. So what?
At least until we got in a fight mid show backstage. But we were in front of like 800 people, and I'm like tap dancing.
It's a lot of pressure.
And dancing and like remembering all this stuff, quick changes, all very like stimulating but confusing and challenging. and you can't fuck up.
No.
Like the stakes, part of the reason I feel very confident as a DJ is the stakes when I was tap dancing in high school were way
so
higher.
much higher.
At least they felt higher.
And the
like,
consequence is bad too. Like your
Yeah.
high school could be entirely
Exactly.
ruined by
And if
just
you're
like one
nervous-
mistake.
if you're nervous when you're acting, it's so easy to tell.
It's clipped.
Because like in the way you talk, in the way you move, in the way that you're like holding yourself on stage,
Like your voice gets
everything,
shaky.
everything. And I did 8 shows that year and like hours and hours of rehearsal. So I think that process. I also
Mhm.
like sang. I was in chorus and like played soccer. So there was
It's
a lot of
multitude
like,
yeah,
yeah, there was a lot of like group oriented activities where I was like forced to like, I don't know,
just kind of interact with people.
interact
That's
with people,
amazing.
but also like perform.
Mm.
Like I had solos in chorus and I was like, I started on the soccer team. So there was a lot of like,
Yeah,
there were big games where there were hundreds of people there or whatever.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So, what do you think are the next steps for Isaiah? What can we expect? I know there's a lot of things going in your head. I know you're super involved with After Dark.
Yeah.
What would you say are the 3 milestones for you from now?
Trying to figure that out right now.
You don't have to have an answer.
Yeah. I would say concretely, my biggest goal for the near future is to start releasing music because that's what got me into this in the first place. I was like listening to artists like Dead Mouse, just like absolutely enthralled by like the sound design. Like I got my first pair of like nice headphones. I got like a pair of Bose instead of like little like Apple, like, and like the sound quality was like a little bit better. And I was like, oh my God, like the synth that comes in at like 40,
It's
like, that
different.
breakdown is unbelievable. How did you do that? Like the transient.
Right.
And I actually started producing way before I started DJing. I started producing when I was like a sophomore in high school. But then COVID hit and I was still producing a bunch, but I bought a DJ board, started DJing, got to Vanderbilt, and, started DJing like tailgates, whatever. And I found that it was difficult to like really trying to hone in on like building my brand as a DJ and like networking and also like getting better at just mixing while also like handling school and meeting a bunch of new people and like staying in shape and getting sleep.
It's a lot.
Sleep at all. But, production kind of fell to the wayside in that way. And now I'm kind of at the point where I feel like I have good connections, like a really solid foundation in Nashville. I've gotten the chance to work with some really, really amazing and inspiring people. I have a great team at After Dark. I feel really blessed to be a part of that project. And like I'm still pretty busy. I've like taken on more work at After Dark, and we still have school. I'm trying to graduate with a decent GPA and make my mom happy and stuff
That's
like
nice.
that. Yeah, but like my goal right now, like I don't want to. Movie recording has been stopped.
It's probably stopped.
Mixing
I got to
recording.
figure out the batter, but that
Okay.
one's still going.
Okay, lit. Like I know that the reason that I started this and the thing that I think will carry me very far in this will be making my own music
Mm-hmm.
and having my own sound. And like it's like a universe of creativity. Like if you've ever tried producing music on like a formal DAW, they call it like a digital audio workstation, Ableton, Logic, FL Studio, Pro Tools if you're a psychopath. I guess it's kind of more for recording, but like it's insane. You feel like you're like driving like a nuclear submarine. Like it's super confusing. At least until you like watch enough YouTube or like take a class that like gives you the know-how. And I'm actually in a like production academy right now because I'm really trying to take my own production more seriously. And I have like a really solid foundation. And I have tracks like sitting on my desktop that I've like
Just
never
ready
put
to
out.
bloom.
Yeah, exactly. But or at least hopefully. But I haven't like made a concerted effort to like build like a marketing structure. Like I'm gonna drop, the DJs that are really doing this have like dozens of songs and they know they're gonna drop sequentially over the next 18 months. Like
Right.
these are gonna be like the marketing like promo ideas and like these are gonna be the places I'm playing during that time or whatever. And like I'm trying to walk the walk and like get a lot more serious about like
Building that.
that out.
I think also volume is a big part because a lot of people try to producing, and not all of them will succeed, obviously. But I think the ones that eventually make it through are the ones that are, one, consistent, and two, familiar with failing but not giving up on that failure.
Yeah, very well
right?
said.
And I think podcasting is same for me too. Like, I know my 101st episodes might never go viral or might never be valuable to the people who are listening. But the key thing that I'll take away is that from one video to the next one, I'll find the best thing that I can improve on and then add it to the video. So it's like small incremental steps to the point where you build a not finalized, but like a valuable product. And I think you can probably translate that into the music production.
Yeah. I mean, I was literally just talking with, this is kind of the beauty of social media. I DM'd one of my favorite DJs. His name's Camino. He's currently in New York playing a lot of cool shows in Brooklyn. And I hit him up kind of on a whim. I was like, hey, like, your music really inspires me. I would like really, really love to like get the chance to pick your brain about like your process. Would you be open to like a 10-minute call? DM me back within like an hour. He's like, hey man, like, great to hear from you. Totally. Like, this is when I'm free this week. Ended up having like a short but really, really informative call. And that was his biggest point. He was like, dude, as a young producer, like, I was producing dubstep and drum and bass and trance and house. He's mainly a house artist now. But like, you need to go through that process of volume, because if you don't put in, your 10,000 hours, you're not going to be creating, especially in audio design, sound engineering, music production. You're not going to be making stuff that is going to compete with what's currently out.
True that. Yeah. Isaiah, thank you so much for all of the wisdom you dropped in this podcast. Thanks for being super vulnerable and open about your story. I think everybody can take like a lesson or two from his like transfer to like Vanderbilt and seeing how he has grown so far. Lovely to have you, man, here, and I look forward to our future conversation as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Albie.
Great podcast.